No, Coraline, rain makes mud. Mud makes a mess.
G'day guys, it's Clayton here from Workbench Hobbies. Thought I'd do something a little bit different. And today I'm going to show you how to create some mud effects and things really quickly and really easily on your models in and around the running gear mainly. Now this is my little paint mule. It's a very old Tamiya M51. I've thrown it together and I've got some paint on it. Obviously you can see it's a two-tone sort of setup. So what I thought I'd do, I'm going to use this one for a demonstration at a show I'm going to. So what I'll do is apply mud to one side, and I've done the two colors like this, just so I can show the different colors and things like that. So you'll probably only get to see half of a model done today, but hopefully I can pop in some photographs of the whole thing finished so you get an idea of what it came up like. The way I'm going to do this is predominantly using these terrains pastes from AK, though I think a lot of other manufacturers do them as well. I just happen to have these ones. Now these are an acrylic based textured paste. And what that means is it can be thinned down with water. Brushes can be cleaned up in water. It is pretty harsh on brushes. So yeah, use some old junkers, because it will destroy your brushes pretty quickly, I've got to say. So what we'll do is talk into this one a little bit more, I think. So what you're going to need is terrains paste. Going to need some sponges and obviously some brushes, which of course I don't have here in front of me, so I'll grab one when it comes time for that. Need a bowl of water, which, excuse me, I will grab. There's my bowl. And there's my water. But first let me talk about this terrains paste, because it's pretty cool, some of the stuff you can do with it. That was stupid. Let's put that down to mix on. So some interesting things about this, like I said, it's a water-based paste, an acrylic product. Now this is pretty old, so it's sort of starting to dry around the edges there. However, I think stopping you from getting it all down the bottom, you can add a bit of water and just give it a bit of a mix up. It's always a good idea to make sure these things are sealed tight, because they will go off over time as the air sort of gets in and around it. So you can see, hopefully there is a texture in this paste as it is. Now this thing comes in a few different colors, this stuff. I mean, there's so many, but you really only need a couple of them for the most part. So I'll just put a little bit on here because I want to show you some of the interesting things you can do with it. Now, because it's acrylic, I mean, some people, if you've got the color you want right there, then that's great. That's a good start. However, if you wanted to tweak, okay, actually I'll get the other color out as well. You can't really shake them, they're like a big hunk of paste. It's not very fluid. You could load it up with water if you wanted, but it'll just become very runny. So this is their sandy desert terrains paste. I'll just get a bit of that out. So there's two colors. Like I said, there's multiple colors of these things. So if I'll grab a brush. So if I add a little bit of water to this, you can see I'm changing the state of it. I guess I'm diluting it, and it's losing its heavy paste. This will dry off to still give me a texture once it dries off. It's not going to look like this big lot of slop. But what I can do, if I'm not happy with the color, because it's an acrylic like this, I can get some of the other colored paste and mix it through, and you see I get a completely new colour. Now I can do that because they're just two acrylic paints, essentially textured paints. So I can now get a mid-tone here. We've got the light tone, mid-tone, and the dark. That's just from the two pastes. Obviously you can put more or less in if you like. The other cool thing about this paste is you can actually add acrylic paint to it. This is the first one. Hopefully this should just brighten it up a bit. Of course I picked the one that's clogged up. Actually, I'm going to get a different colour. I'm going to get something lighter. Bear with me. So this is a skin tone. These skin tones are really terrific for brightening and lightening things up, whether you're painting figures or anything like that. But I can put some of that in the mix. Probably put too much, but you get the picture. And they got a completely new tone. So in terms of which one to buy, and you know, if you can get the colour you're looking for straight out of the pot, then that's a great thing. If you can't find the colour that you're hoping for, then as you can see, it's really easy to add colours. Doesn't take much. It's just a little bit of brown to that one, and I'll show you how this one comes through. There you go. We've got a palette of 4 different colours there, just from the 2 pastes. I mean, you could have got this palette just from the 1 paste and a few different acrylics as well. That should give you the idea. The other cool thing you can do with this terrains paste, and I'll get to the tank in a minute and show you how I do it, is you can start adding some organic elements to it. So things like these little seagrass balls are just unreal. I love them so much. AK used to sell them, but I'm pretty sure these ones came from Etsy or one of those online sort of retailers. They're literally just collected off the beaches. These, and they're like all little compacted fibers, really handy to have in the kit bag. Or you can add tea leaves, say, you know, like these leaves you'd pick up for your dioramas, and I will sprinkle some of that in. Or, you know, there's nothing stopping you from sprinkling and mixing in rocks and dirt and things like that. Like I said, that does have a texture to it when it dries. So just be mindful, if you're adding more fine grit, it'll be enhancing the fine texture that's going to come up in this paste. But if you wanted, like, you know, hunks of mud and things like this, you could bulk it up with these little pebbles and rocks and things. With this seagrass, I'll just cut a little bit of it up. You literally get your scissors and just cut the fibers up. If you want them longer, you can cut them a bit longer. A mixture of both. Try not to make them too uniform. And then to mix it through, I would just literally sprinkle it over the mud. And then mix it through. Just mix it all together. You can see I'm starting to get some of that really nice fibrous kind of look through. You can see all up in here, which will just add a little bit of life to this mud. Obviously check your references, and it's really important to understand where your vehicle's operating and in terms of colours and coverage and debris and things like that. I'm going to spread a little bit of this diorama texture in as well, which is just a bit more of a fine grit. Probably haven't mixed up enough to get me across the line with this half of the tank that I wanted to do, but I'll have a go. I'm more about worried about trying to match that colour that I mixed up, obviously, because I was just sort of throwing everything at it. So there's my tank. Now you might notice as well that I've left all the running gear off it. I've done that so it doesn't obscure my access to those parts where I want to add some mud. So I've just got an old brush there. So I'm gonna grab some and start applying. It's all right if it doesn't go exactly where you're hoping it to go, but I would usually start around that top inside edge, and of course I don't have tracks and things to worry about yet. It's just all about, I always, well, I shouldn't say always, mostly always like to weather the underside of my model before I go to paint. So what I would do, I'd paint and weather this underside. And once it had all dried and I was happy, I would put some like alfoil or something as a mask around it all, and then start painting the top side. Which I know, I've never understood how people build everything and then paint it. It just seems awkward to me. Now the secret with this stuff, because it will dry hard like concrete, so literally you've got a working window with it, and so you won't have time to let the stuff dry. You have to, I mean, you've probably got maybe, if it's wet, sort of like 10 minutes. But if you keep adding water to the system, you'll keep it alive. I mean, I can feel this starting to dry off in here now, so I would just, if I can just add water to the system.
Need some water?
Yeah, it's starting to dry on the palette, but that's okay. So adding water to it isn't going to sort of diminish the effect at all. It's just going to give me a bit of a bigger working window. So I'm trying to concentrate around areas that would gather the most debris and mud. Obviously this is probably a bit of overkill. So again, just know what you're going for sort of before you start. It can be really easy to get carried away with this. And if I've got something going where I don't really want it to go through here, just wet the brush. Just wet the brush and move it around, gather it up down the bottom corners. I can feather the edges of this with the brush, or the other way I can do it is with a bit of sponge that I've just wet the sponge. Just dab away at it. I'm trying to feather the edges and distribute the mud. If I use that stabbing motion at it, I should be able to save like the lumps and bumps. I'm hoping that's showing up. There's some really cool lumps and bumps getting through there. But with the sponge, I mean, you can also use it as a bit of a paint, so that mud tone carries through. Just lightly dab at it. So this, you don't actually want to paint it, you want this look, this mottled, irregular kind of finish. And you can see some of this debris starting to find its way here. So what I might do actually with this colour that we've done, what I'll do is now go back to the muddy ground, this straight colour, and I'll show you how we can blend them together. I'll sprinkle some more seagrass in here. Why don't we throw some leaves in there as well, leaf debris. Again, just have to be a little bit careful with the size of the debris. You have to make sure it's in scale, and yeah, just not too prominent. These things work best if it's not too obvious, if it's kind of just all in the mix. I hope that makes sense. So now I've got two tones of mud here, and I'll use the darker one down the bottom edge. My palette doesn't want to stay still. And just be mindful, I'm going to town on this just because it's a demonstration. But just be mindful. Try and keep the mud away from any moving parts. Obviously, because of the motion in the part. I'm talking about things like the swing arms on a Panzer or the torsion, swing arms. So the mud would tend to build up towards the back, generally speaking. Again, check your reference. I'm just pushing this around with the wet brush. Yeah, that's where the sponge can come in handy. Let's give it a bit of a and I'll just keep working along. It's really important not to get any mud and muck on any of these contact points or anywhere that you need to apply stuff over the top. I mean, some people could put tape around those connection points just to save themselves a little bit, but it's all right. An insurance policy kind of thing. The other thing this textured paste is really good at is plugging holes. This is a pretty crummy old kit, and yeah, there's lots of gaps and things, so I can use this paste to essentially fill holes. Just adding a bit of water to the tip of my sponge, and what that's going to do is feather out the dark to the light, and I can just use it to unify the look and finish around there. And then while it's wet, come back to the little debris pile, just sprinkle some on. If it's too heavy or out of scale or too obvious, just blend it in. So it's almost, the paints, or the terrains paste is almost, well, it's not almost, it is creating, it's like a paint, so it's integrating those little leaves and things. You can see we're getting some really cool textures and things in there. Now, if I wanted to integrate that up onto the tank itself, that's a really easy thing to do. Again, check references. I know it sort of gets a bit boring, but better to do that. Or you can just have some fun with it. This is something everyone can do. It doesn't matter if you're brush paint, airbrush paint, if you're new to the hobby. It's a lot of fun. You just have to be mindful. You do have a working window, and yeah, if you miss it, this stuff dries rock hard. Go to the dark. Clean the brush often. You just want to try and avoid any sharp lines that are like sort of, I guess you'd call them tide lines almost, and that's where the sponge is really handy. And use different ends of the sponge, like the wet end will sort of do different things to the dry end. Now all of these effects sort of go the next level when you start integrating them when they're dry, of course, with things like washes and the other thing, if it's still wet, you can that's coming through. You can introduce, you know, run lines and streaking lines, just working the brush in that up and down motion. This is like I said, this is all acrylic. The only bad thing about acrylic is, well, bad thing in my eye, because I paint with a lot of enamels and oils, is you can't reactivate it. Once it's dry, that's it, it's over. It's just water on a brush. Moving that around. Just adding that water and stabbing at it will soften the effect. Just remember to integrate it on the underside. And then what I'll do is just sponge this off just to integrate it all. Completely unrealistic placement here, but for the demo, I'm sure it'll be fine. Although you never know. Maybe it's gone through some muddy terrain. All right, let's smooth that out. Wet the sponge. Experiment with the way you're using sponge as well. Like moving it around, you don't just have to dab at it. You can start getting different effects by just, you know, pulling at it or scrubbing at it. It's honestly, it's just such an easy thing to do. This product is really, really good. Like I said, I'm sure a lot of the others do it as well. I just happen to have these ones, the OK ones. Anything sort of starts to get messy, it's all right. Just let it go. We can always come back and repaint some of the stuff that looks a little bit scrappy. So what I'll do now, I'll give it a quick blast with the hairdryer, so block your ears. It won't dry off that fast. So that's what I'm going to do first. I'm going back to the lightest one that I haven't even mixed in. This is the Sandy Desert. I'm just kind of stabbing and tracing around the outside. I'm trying to add just that lighter tone in there. It looks a little bit maybe stark, just that or deep. I don't know. I just looked at it when it started drying off, and I thought we could make it a little bit more interesting. So I think this will work better if we kind of keep it to the top and pull it down. So I'm almost using that just like a paint. I tend to find this stuff dries darker than you think it might as well. So I can almost use it like an acrylic wash. So I'll pop these wheels on, I'll glue them in place. Well, these wheels will still spin, but I'll glue the glue. I'm counting on glue. I've spent the morning painting return rollers and wheels. And we'll pop the wheels on. Cool. I'm not even going to let that dry. Of course I've put the wheels on back to front.
Nice.
If I was doing this for myself, I'd probably pre-assemble all these things before I started the process, but just wanted to make sure you could get a good look at it. Cool. That's a heck of a lot better, isn't it? I neglected this top little bit. So as a general rule, the darker the paste, the more kind of wet it would be. If we just need to add a gloss or something to it to indicate it was wet, but I guess mud dries out, but tends to lighten up. So there's nothing stopping me, and I probably would, when this all dries out, it would, any harsh lines or anything like that, I could blend it with the airbrush, and washes and things are certainly going to make a difference there as well. But it's sort of starting to look pretty cool by itself. So I've got a little bit here. So I would look to incorporate the wheels and mud hunks and things in here now. Hopefully this is all coming through. So again, try and keep it away from moving parts. I mean, the wheels will definitely get some mud here. But you don't want this to clog too much up, and certainly not on the faces of the wheels, because they'd be moving along the ground and getting a lot of that out. If it happens to get on there, just remember the water can, well, dilute it, and you can move and change and add a bit more, add a bit less. Right, so that looks a little bit goopy at the moment, but we can certainly move it around. Just moving it around a bit. I'm holding judgment on this because it tends to dry quite different to how it sort of goes down. Once all that surface water starts to evaporate and it starts drying off, is where you'll start seeing what the texture looks like. If it's not looking like what you're hoping for, then wet it quickly. See what I mean about the debris looking a bit odd sometimes, so just be mindful of scale, and I'm going to load that up a bit more up the top. Again, just cleaning up the spots that I don't want to goop up with mud too much. It's a pretty messy process, but it's fun. And it's really pretty easy. I mean, there's, as long as you're basing your placement and volume on something that was plausible. I mean, you obviously don't have to have a reference photo, but as long as you can justify putting it where you did, it's pretty much a good life rule. Sorry, Mum. It's a heck of a lot of fun to play with. So hopefully that's sort of given you a better idea of what I'm doing here and how I'm creating mud. In terms of how quick it dries, you can see this up here, it's still a little bit spongy and a little bit tacky, but that'll be dry really, really soon. In terms of, I mean, the other stuff's a bit wet because I reactivate it. I mean, the other thing you can do, which I forgot to mention, is, you know, you can start scuffing the mud up with like a toothpick, and you can start getting some really interesting, see if I can zoom on that for you. Some really interesting mud clumps. Just a bit more life and texture into it. It's a really cool product, really cool technique. Like I said, it's easy, and it's something, well, pretty much if you have a go, you'll see how easy it is. Again, I've been pretty excessive here, but obviously it's just for the demonstration. But yeah, essentially that is the terrains paste and how that works. Great stuff. You can tweak and change colors and sponge it and feather it, and yeah, get some pretty interesting mud build up on your vehicles or in your dioramas. I mean, this terrains paste is great for groundwork and whatnot, and dioramas as well. So I'd encourage you to give it a go. And you can see all that debris, all that beautiful debris build up there.
You can confidently use these techniques over the tracks to create mud effects as well. Obviously be mindful that the finish must be balanced and in tune with the results achieved from the previous steps. This is a demo I did at the recent MALCOM show in Penang, Malaysia, and I'll be bringing you some content from that show real soon. I hope you've learned something today and are going to give some of these techniques a bit of a try. You'll be amazed at just how easy it can be. And remember guys, this is the greatest hobby in the world. Share it with your family and share it with your friends, and let's be proud of what we do. Until next time, I'll see you soon.
Beauty mud.